I didn't run away. I erased myself. I packed my things and disappeared after my wife slapped me at her birthday dinner in front of her friends and family. 4 years later, I was invited to an exclusive meeting of millionaire elites in my hometown. When I landed, I got shocking news about my wife. You know that feeling when you're standing on the edge of a cliff, thinking you're about to jump into something beautiful, only to realize you're falling into your own grave? That was me on March 15th, planning what I thought would be the perfect night for Delilah's 36th birthday. I've been working on this thing for months, man. Not weeks, months. Every single detail had to be flawless because that's what Delilah deserved. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself while I was dropping serious cash on stuff that would probably bankrupt most normal people. The rooftop venue alone cost me $3,000. But it wasn't just any rooftop. This was the penthouse terrace at the Meridian with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the whole city. You could see the river snaking through downtown. All those lights twinkling like diamonds scattered across black velvet. It was the kind of view that made people shut up and just stare. The wine, don't even get me started. I flew in cases of this French stuff, Chateau, something or other, that the wine guy swore was absolutely transcendent. Cost me $400 a bottle, and I bought enough to make sure everyone could get properly buzzed without us running out. I'm talking about the good stuff here, not some cheap grocery store wine that tastes like it was filtered through a gym sock. Then there was the quartet. Real musicians, not some college kids looking to make beer money. These guys had played at symphony halls and fancy weddings for celebrities whose names you definitely recognize. They sat up in the corner with their instruments gleaming under the string lights I'd had installed specifically for this night. The violinist had this way of making his instrument sing that gave you chills. The cake was its own masterpiece. 3 tiers of fancy Belgian chocolate, custom designed with edible gold leaf and sugar flowers that looked so real you'd think someone had just picked them from a garden. The baker spent weeks getting the details just right, representing Delilah's journey, her love for art, her dreams of traveling. I had everything mapped out like a military operation. The guests would arrive at 7, mingle with cocktails while watching the sunset paint the sky all those crazy colors. The quartet would start playing right as the last bit of daylight faded, creating this magical atmosphere. Then dinner, catered by that upscale place downtown, the cake, the speeches, and hopefully Delilah looking at me like I was the greatest guy who ever lived. But life's got this twisted sense of humor, doesn't it? When a moment came for Delilah to give her thank you speech, I was standing there grinning like an overexcited fool, waiting for her to mention how I'd pulled all this together. She thanked her sister, Bianca, for always being there. She thanked her mom for raising her right. She thanked her friends for making life worth living. She even thanked the waitstaff for their service. But me, the guy who'd been planning this thing since Christmas, who'd stressed over every detail, who'd blown through his savings account to make her dreams come true for one night. Nothing. Not even a glance in my direction. That's when something inside me started to crack. Not break, just crack. Like when you drop a glass, but it doesn't shatter right away. It just sits there with these hairline fractures running through it, waiting for the next hit to finish the job. You know what? Delilah said, her voice cutting through the music and conversation like a knife. She was looking right at me now, but not in the way I'd been hoping for. Her eyes had that cold look I'd seen before, usually right before she was about to tear into someone for disappointing her. Now, the whole vibe here feels off, like someone's trying too hard to impress people instead of just letting things happen naturally. I felt my stomach drop. Everyone was staring now, the conversations dying out one by one as people sensed drama brewing. I mean, seriously, she continued, gesturing around at all the stuff I'd carefully arranged. This whole setup screams desperation. It's like someone watched too many movies and thought they could buy their way into being romantic. That's when she walked over to me, her heels clicking on the rooftop tiles like a countdown timer. I thought maybe she was going to whisper something, apologize for being harsh, tell me she was just overwhelmed by everything. Instead, she pulled back and slapped me so hard my ears rang. The sound echoed across the rooftop like a gunshot. Then came a laughter, not from everyone, but from enough people to make it feel like the whole world was pointing and laughing at the guy who tried too hard and failed spectacularly. Her sister Bianca had this smirk on her face, like she'd been waiting for this moment all night. Her mom just shook her head with disappointment, like I was some kid who'd broken something valuable. I could have said something, could have defended myself, pointed out everything I'd done, made a scene right back, but what was the point? Standing there with my face burning and my pride in pieces, I realized something that probably should have been obvious way earlier. You can't make someone love you by throwing money at them. And you definitely can't fix a broken relationship with fancy parties. So, I did the only thing that made sense. I straightened my jacket, looked around at all those faces staring at me like I was some kind of circus act, and walked away without saying a word. Not to Delilah, not to anyone. I just left my own girlfriend's birthday party like a ghost dissolving into the night. That same night, while she was probably still up there celebrating my humiliation, I packed everything that mattered into 2 suitcases, grabbed my external hard drives with all my work files, cleaned out my savings account, and drove out of town. I didn't leave a note, didn't make any dramatic goodbye calls. I just vanished from their lives like I'd never existed in the first place. I drove west until I hit Oregon, where the rain falls like it's got nothing better to do, and nobody asked too many questions about why you showed up with everything you own crammed into the back of a Honda Civic. The name change wasn't some elaborate spy movie thing. Damon Cross had a nice ring to it. Strong, but not flashy. Memorable, but not suspicious. I ended up in this little town called Cedar Falls. Population, maybe 8,000 on a good day. Found myself a tiny apartment above this old bookstore called Frederick's Literary Haven. The place smelled like old paper and coffee, with creaky wooden floors that announced your every move. Frederick himself was a sweet old man, probably pushing 70, with wild Einstein hair and glasses held together with electrical tape. He rented me the upstairs space for next to nothing, just $400 a month, utilities included. When I handed him the first month's rent in cash, he just nodded and said, "We all got our reasons for needing a fresh start, son. Long as you don't burn the place down or blast music after 10 o'clock, we'll get along just fine." That man never asked me a single personal question in all the time I lived there. During the day, I took whatever work I could find. Construction mostly. Roofing jobs that left my back screaming and my hands raw. Electrical work that required crawling through attics that felt like ovens in the summer. Moving jobs where I'd haul people's entire life from one place to another, thinking about how I'd done the same thing with my own life. But the real work happened at night, after 10 hours of manual labor, when my muscles were screaming and most normal people would be crashing in front of the TV. I'd crack open my laptop and dive into the world I'd left behind. Finance, coding, digital marketing, all the stuff I'd dabbled in before but never taken seriously. I started small, watching YouTube videos about cryptocurrency and reading every finance blog I could find. I lost my shirt on some unwise altcoin investment in month 3. Dropped $2,000 on something called Moon Doge that crashed harder than my relationship with Delilah. Got taken advantage of by some deceptive trading platform that cost me another $1,500 before I realized what was happening. But you know what? Every failure taught me something. Every mistake made me smarter, more careful, more determined. By year 2, I wasn't just learning anymore. I was earning. I started flipping houses, buying these rundown properties that nobody wanted and turning them into something people would actually want to live in. Nothing fancy, just solid work that added value. I'd buy a place for $30,000, put in another $20,000 in materials and sweat equity, and sell it for $60,000. Simple math, steady profits. The crypto thing finally started paying off too, once I stopped chasing get-rich-quick schemes and started treating it like actual investing. Set up shell companies to keep everything clean and legal. Diversified my portfolio. Played the long game instead of trying to hit home runs every time. By year 4, I was the silent partner behind 2 online consulting firms. Never showed my face, never used my real name, but I was the guy making the strategies that turned failing businesses into success stories. Companies would hire my firms to fix their marketing, streamline their operations, boost their profits. They'd never know that the mastermind behind their turnaround was some guy living above a bookstore in Oregon. Then I got this mysterious invitation on expensive cream-colored paper with perfect calligraphy. No return address, no postmark, no stamp. Mr. Cross, your reputation in certain circles has not gone unnoticed. We cordially invite you to attend an exclusive summit for emerging global investors. The Grand View Resort, Riverview, March 20th, 22. Someone knew about Damon Cross and invited me back to my old hometown on March 20th, Delilah's birthday weekend. At the Riverview Airport, Maxwell Lynn was waiting for me. A guy I'd met exactly once, years ago, at some networking event Delilah had dragged me to. One of those smooth-talking investor types who made his money by convincing other people to give him their money. But somehow he knew all my identities. He handed me the Riverview Herald with a headline that made my stomach drop. Local entrepreneur detained in $7.6 million investor deceptive scheme. And there was Delilah's picture, restrained by authorities, being led away by federal agents. Her makeup was smeared and her hair disheveled, like she'd been crying for hours. She'd been running a deceptive equity firm called Trinity Investment Solutions with some guy named Jeremy Kane. Classic scheme activity, taking money from investors, promising huge returns on some revolutionary tech startup that didn't actually exist. But when the authorities came knocking, Delilah had tried to pin the whole thing on me. Said I was the mastermind who disappeared with $2 million. They were looking for Silas Ward. She's trying to frame you, Maxwell said. She told investigators you were the mastermind, that you'd convinced her to start the fake company before cutting and running when things got hot. He showed me what looked like a federal wanted poster with my old driver's license photo. But here's the thing about 4 years of careful preparation. It actually pays off when your troubled ex-girlfriend tries to frame you for federal crimes. I'd spent years building multiple identities, creating paper trails that could exonerate me, and keeping meticulous records of every business deal I'd ever made. I had bank records showing exactly where my money came from, timestamps proving I was in Oregon during every single month that Delilah's scheme was running, business partners who could verify my legitimate consulting work. Within 6 hours of reading that newspaper, I had lawyers in 3 different states reviewing my documentation. Not just any lawyers, the kind of high-powered defense attorneys who charge more per hour than most people make in a week. While the legal team was building my defense, I reached out to investigative reporter Ray Patel, who owed me a favor from when I had helped her break a story about cryptocurrency fraud targeting elderly investors. Ray worked around the clock for 36 hours straight, fact-checking every detail and building a narrative that would completely flip the script. The article dropped online at exactly 6 a.m., The Ghost Builder, From Silence to Empire. She painted me as this brilliant entrepreneur who'd rebuilt himself from nothing after being publicly humiliated by a self-centered girlfriend, only to have that same girlfriend try to destroy him again when her criminal schemes collapsed. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with support. Financial news outlets picked up the story. 3 days later, federal prosecutors issued a statement saying they'd reviewed the new evidence and determined that Silas Ward was not a person of interest. In fact, they were now investigating how Delilah had obtained and misused my personal information. I showed up at the Grand View Resort's charity gala in my charcoal Armani suit and platinum Rolex. Walking through those massive oak doors felt like stepping back in time. Except I wasn't the same man who'd left this world 4 years ago. The main ballroom was exactly what you'd expect. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, tables draped in white linen. It took maybe 20 minutes before I spotted her. Delilah was holding court near the bar, wearing this stunning black dress, but I could see the cracks if I looked closely enough. The way her smile seemed forced, the slight tremor in her hands when she lifted her wine glass, the way her eyes kept darting around the room like she was expecting bad news. Our eyes met across maybe 15 feet of crowded dance floor, and time just stopped. Delilah's face went through about 6 different emotions: confusion, recognition, disbelief, fear, anger, and finally something that looked almost like relief. That's when she dropped her wine glass. The sound of crystal hitting marble was sharp enough to cut through the ambient noise. Red wine splashed across the white tablecloth like a sudden stain at a crime scene. I could have made a scene, let everyone know that the mysterious businessman from the viral news story was standing right there. Instead, I just nodded. One small, almost imperceptible acknowledgement that yes, I saw her. Yes, I was really there. And yes, everything had changed. That nod said everything that needed to be said. It was about power, the quiet, unshakable kind that comes from knowing you've already won. 2 nights later, there was a hesitant knock in my penthouse suite at exactly 11:47 p.m. Delilah looked like she'd been crying for hours, maybe days. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was a mess, and she was wearing this rumpled designer dress that looked like she'd been sleeping in it. "Silas," she said. Just hearing my real name from her lips after all this time hit me harder than I'd expected. "Please, I know I don't deserve this, but I need to talk to you." I let her in and poured her a glass of water. "Jeremy turned on me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The federal prosecutors offered him a deal if he'd testify against me. He took it, said I was the mastermind, that I'd manipulated him into helping with the scheme. Then she did something that 4 years ago would have broken my heart. She dropped to her knees right there on the carpet. I know I hurt you. I know I was horrible to you that night. And I know I don't deserve your help. But please, Silas, I'm scared. I don't know what to do." The tears started then. Real tears, not the crocodile tears she used to turn on whenever she wanted something. I let her cry for maybe 5 minutes, just standing there watching this woman who had once made me feel like I wasn't worth the air I breathe, reduced to begging on my hotel room floor. When she finally looked up at me, I told her the truth. Delilah, I'm not angry at you anymore. I was for a long time, but I'm not now. You know why? Because being angry at you is like being angry at a scorpion for stinging. It's just what you do. It's who you are. The thing is, I don't care anymore. Not about your legal troubles. Not about Jeremy. Not about whatever mess you've gotten yourself into this time. You didn't just lose me when you slapped me that night. You lost access to me, and that's something you'll never get back. At the Global Investment Summit, I was the keynote speaker in front of 300 of the most powerful investors in the country. 4 years ago, I said I disappeared, not because I want to hide from the world, but because I needed to figure out who I was when nobody else was watching. Most of you probably know the headlines by now, but here's what they don't tell you. None of that matters. What matters is what you build when nobody's applauding. The energy in the room was electric. I spent 4 years learning that healing doesn't come from revenge or vindication. It comes from outgrowing the need for those things. Success isn't about proving you were right all along. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. The applause was sustained, but I just nodded once and walked off stage. Delilah's trial lasted 3 weeks, and I showed up for exactly 1 day, when her lawyer tried to throw a last-ditch effort and pin everything on me again. Judge Morrison shut it down immediately. Mr. Ward is not on trial here. The evidence clearly shows that he had no involvement in Trinity Investment Solutions. Jeremy had already testified, explaining how she'd masterminded everything. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. 6 years in federal detention, plus restitution. A year after her sentencing, I built the Ward Center for Resilient Youth in Riverview, a state-of-the-art facility for foster kids and teenagers who'd been written off. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, a kid from the crowd raised his hand and asked, "Are you the man who came back stronger?" I smiled, really smiled, probably for the first time in years. I'm the man who learned to disappear without losing himself. Sometimes I still think about that night. The imported wine, the custom cake, the laughter that followed the slap. But it doesn't sting anymore. It's just a story about someone I used to be. Someone who thought he needed other people's approval to have worth. The rooftop slap didn't define me. It revealed me. It showed me who I could become when I stopped trying to be what other people wanted. Sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't revenge. It's disappearing so completely that they realize what they lost only after it's way too late to get it back.